Total War Warhammer 3 has a problem. Well, if you've been playing the game or even just watching it on YouTube or following the conversations on social media, you know that Warhammer 3 has a lot of problems. However, I'm not here to talk about bugs. They're annoying, they shouldn't be in the game, and they will eventually be fixed, if not by Creative Assembly, then by the legion of talented modders who work tirelessly to improve these games for everyone. What I'm here to talk about is a much bigger problem that I've been aware of for some time, but which other people did not seem to take issue with. So I spent months wondering, is this just me? Well, I've played the game for some time now, and I can officially say it's not just me. There's a major error that CA have made in the gameplay design of Total War Warhammer 3, and if it isn't annoying you yet, believe me, it's only a matter of time. I'm talking about the new minor settlement siege battles. They may not be annoying you or boring you yet, but eventually they will. I'm going to begin by outlining the main issues that we all had with sieges in Total War Warhammer 2. 1. The maps were awful. 2. They were boring and entirely focused upon tricking the AI rather than real strategy. That's both when attacking and defending. And 3. There were just too many of them, with sieges usually outnumbering field battles in a campaign by a significant amount. So let's start with the positives. The maps are now larger, more visually pleasing and vastly more interesting. There's more of a strategic element now, with twisting streets, bridges, more entry points and opportunities to encircle the enemy. It's also now possible to hold on to a minor settlement with your garrison against some pretty reasonable opposition, which was seldom the case with Warhammer 2. And the negatives? Well, here's one absolutely huge one. They're happening all the time. If we go back to my list of issues from a second ago with Warhammer 2 Sieges, number 3 was that there were just too many of them due to the fact that basically every settlement outside of Norsca could get walls. However, this was at least balanced out by the fact that below Tier 3 with a Tier 3 garrison building, you wouldn't have walls and it would therefore be a field battle, which Total War Warhammer is otherwise suspiciously short of. CA's solution to this has been to improve the tactical challenge of siege maps, but also massively increase the number of them, while also correspondingly decreasing the number of field battles, which was already too low for a Total War game. In essence, they've tried to fix the siege problem by giving us more sieges. Now you might be saying, but these new battles aren't really sieges. But let me ask you a few questions. In these battles, do you have to pick your way through narrow corridors? Are you finding yourself standing in one spot, casting spells and shooting, or fighting melee blobs? Are you having to pick your way around defensive obstructions? Are you having to position your armies to avoid defensive tower fire? And finally, are they taking longer to finish than an equivalent field battle would? We all know the answer to every one of these questions is yes, so let's be clear. These are siege battles with open doors, and with immortal empires likely to have between 500 and 600 settlements at launch, you are going to get tired of fighting these very, very quickly. The other major problem that I have with these battles is somewhat more subjective, and I feel I'm likely to get more pushback on this. When the first survival battle footage was released to the public last year, we heard the first murmurs of disquiet from the content creators who'd been given the opportunity to play it. I didn't see a single enthusiastic endorsement of this gameplay, and some bordered on quietly scornful, to the extent that CA quickly acted to reassure everyone that this was a survival challenge battle that had been introduced just for the final battle of the narrative campaign of Warhammer 3. Fine. I'll even leave aside the fact that this battle actually occurs 5 times if you actually want to win the campaign. However, I saw something in this footage that worried me far more than the waves of demons being auto-spawned in. I saw massive barricade platforms and, sweet Jesus, powerful artillery towers being built in combat in less than 2 minutes. And my response to this was, what the actual fuck is this Fortnite mobile phone tower defense game bullshit? I was convinced that this was going to come over into the main game, and sure enough, I was right. This stuff is so out of place in a Total War game that it blows my mind that it was ever considered. I get that this is a game with magic and monsters in it, but last time I checked there was no lore of architecture on tabletop, so how exactly are stone artillery towers being built in 90 seconds? And how does, well, they control a supply point right on the other side of the map, so that enables them to build a massive wall in a minute while under heavy archer fire over on this side of the map. How does that make any sense from any logical gameplay perspective? So how do we fix this? Now let's just be clear, I don't arbitrarily hate everything about these new maps and mechanics. The kernels of great ideas are there in both the new sieges and their defensive structures. The problem in both cases is that CA has massively overdone both of them. So now there are too many sieges to fight and too many pop-up defensive structures available to defenders, with some minor settlements actually being easier to defend than a great many walled major settlements. The balance is broken, but there are ways to address and correct these issues. Number 1. Reduce the number of minor settlement sieges and increase the number of field battles. The way that I want to do this is by keeping the minor sieges in place, but not as many of them. The point at which they should come in is when you have a tier 2 settlement with a tier 2 garrison defense building. So for all tier 1 settlements, plus tier 2 and tier 3 if they don't have the garrison defense building, they should be field battles. The logic behind this is simple. The garrison defense building represents an investment on the faction's part into defending the settlement against attack. The base garrison will go up with each tier naturally, but the garrison building is what signifies that this settlement is prepared to really defend against attack. So in short, no garrison building means a field battle. Tier 2 or tier 3 with a tier 2 garrison building means a minor settlement siege battle, as we have, and tier 3 with a tier 3 garrison building means a wall settlement, again, as we already have. Step 2 is to introduce limited defensive structures for settlement defense field battles. So garrison buildings presently come in at tier 2. What I propose is to add a tier 1 building before that, which represents the training and resources to build limited structures on the battlefield. I'm talking about things like sharpened stakes, which some units had in Medieval 2. Small walls, maybe a short defensive trench or pit. Just some small things that can be used to give the defender a kind of home field advantage, while being balanced by not being able to move them after pre-battle deployment. This then brings me on to the final step, step 3, which is end the tower defense madness. The ability to customize defensive layout pre-battle in minor settlement sieges is a good thing, and I want to retain that. Hell, I'd actually increase the initial budget so you can get a little bit more set up during the pre-battle. However, the ability to build complex structures in seconds during the heat of battle has to go. Some structures like palisades and small firing platforms would still be available to build on the fly, but would take longer and not be as durable as those built pre-battle. This gives you some flexibility in battle, but raises the stakes on your pre-battle selection, with no easy mistake correction and a massive reduction in the amount of pop-up tower defense nonsense. It's a more balanced approach to these defensive systems, more in keeping with a mature game like the Total War series, as opposed to what we have right now, which really does at times feel like it belongs more in a mobile phone game. Bear in mind that this is all just a start. There are other forms of defensive structure that we could even consider, like traps and trenches. They haven't been implemented yet and they could be fantastic. You could use fire traps, you could use spike traps, you could add in a skill for heroes which makes it easier for them to spot these traps so that you can steer against them when you're the attacker. There are so many options that are available that I don't think have been considered, and they really should be now while the game is young and fresh. But this is really, as I say, just a starting point. What do you guys think? Maybe you're still in love with the minor sieges. Do you think you'll still be in love with them when you're wading through them over and over again in Immortal Empires in somewhere that's quite settlement dense like, say, Bretonnia or the Empire? Maybe you think I'm not going far enough. You hate them and you want to get rid of them completely. And maybe you have better ideas for new structures that we can add in. Regardless of which it is, stick your opinion down in the comments section and let's talk about it. And hopefully we'll be able to come up with some ideas that will really enrich this game and purge the mobile phone crap out of it. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.